Okay, you're gonna start. Hello everyone. Today we're going to be covering one of the most frustrating ways that people lose easy marks on the exam: time. You might think at first, what's the point of knowing how to answer these kinds of questions? Well, actually there are a lot more uses than you might think. So, for example, you might have an hour to do, or even an hour and a half to have a meeting with someone, but you also have a 30-minute task that you want to complete. So you want to find out how much time you have left after you complete that 30-minute task, assuming you're doing them together. This is just one of many examples. In this 5 or 6 minute video, by the end of this video, you should be able to comfortably work around time and answer them in GCSE questions and recognize them in forms that they most commonly appear in. As a warm-up question, how many minutes are there in an hour? Pause the video and type in the comment section below. Okay, so the answer is 60 minutes, of course. Not 100, 60. So how do we work out how many hours is 120 minutes? Well, we can think of it as ratios. So there are 60 minutes to 1 hour. Okay, so if we double the amount of minutes, the amount of hours is also going to get doubled, which gives us 2 hours. Another way is you simply divide 120 by 60. Why? Because you are trying to work out how many 60 minutes, how many hours go into 120 minutes. So the important thing is the first thing we do, we put it all into the same form, into minutes. We convert it, we get 120 over 60 minutes, which is, of course, cancel out the 0, we get 2. 2 hours. Don't forget to put the unit of measurement. Work out the difference in minutes between 2 hours, 25 minutes, and 1.5 hours. So what I find is that I would choose to convert it into minutes because it's asking us to give the answer in minutes. So 2 hours and 25 minutes. Well, how do we work this out? Well, what we can do, we know that there's 25 minutes, but we just need to calculate how many minutes is 2 hours and then plus add the 25 minutes that come after. So how do we do it? Well, 2 times 60 this time, not divide, because we're putting it into hour form. 2 hours multiplied by 60 plus the 25 minutes that we have here equals, and you can pause this one and do it by yourself, 145 minutes. But we haven't finished, because we also need to find out how many minutes are in 1.5 hours. So we do the same thing, but this time, you notice it doesn't say how many minutes are here, it just says 1.5 hours. So we have to do the same thing, but we have to multiply 1.5 multiplied by 60. Now what you can do is you can put this into a different form. So instead of 1.5, what I like to do is I like to put it into decimal form. And then what we can do is, well, you're multiplying by 10 here, so the decimal point moves to the right, and we can express this as 50 multiplied by 6, or 90 minutes. Although with time and enough practice, you should be able to recognize that 1.5 hours is equal to 90 minutes without any calculation. And we're still not finished because we're trying to find the difference. So difference means subtract. Minus 90 equals 55. 55 minutes. And because it's less than an hour, we don't need to convert it. And anyway, we're also asking us to give it in minutes. Question: why do we insist on putting the unit of measurement? Why do we say hours? Why is the answer not just simply 55? Well, because without any information, there is nothing to tell us whether it's 55 minutes or 55 hours. It might seem obvious to us, but actually, unfortunately, it's not. Okay, and now next question is a word question. So how do we approach these questions? Well, let's read it first. So Haley leaves her house at 10:40. As we're reading, we're underlining the most important information. So 10:40, she walks from her home to the shop. It took her 40 minutes to walk to the shop. Now, does it matter to us in answering the question whether she goes from her home to the shops or to the movies? It doesn't. So we ignore this information. But it takes her 40 minutes to walk to the shop. Now the 40 minutes is relevant. Why? Because we need to find out what time she arrives at her friend's house. She was at the shop for 10 minutes, more important time, and then she walks from the shop to her friend's house. And it takes her 22 minutes, so we underline this, to walk to her friend's house. So imagine this is Haley. She walks to the shop. This is the shop. To get here is 14 minutes. What time does she arrive? Well, we simply add the time that she walks to the time that she leaves. So 10:40 plus 14, which gives us 10:54. Now, to get from 10, so she goes from the shop then, she waits there actually for 10 minutes. So is the answer 10 to 64? Is that when she leaves? No, because there's only 60 minutes in an hour. So everything else that isn't in the hour goes to the next hour. So what I like to do is I like to think how many minutes does it take to complete the hour. In this case, it's 6 minutes. So I know that it's going to be 11. And then I just take away the 6 minutes from the 22 minutes that she's waiting, which gives, from the 10 minutes that she's waiting, which gives us 4 minutes extra. And if you don't believe me, you can just check. So 10:54 plus 6 plus 4 is 10. 11:04. And then she walks to her friend's house, which takes her 22 minutes. And this time, of course, simply adding 22, and it gives us 11:26. And this is the time that she arrives at her friend's house, which is the answer we're looking for. The answer is 11:26. And last question. A train leaves London St Pancras at 6:18. How many minutes should it take to reach Paris? The first thing we need to do, of course, is we need to locate the train that leaves London St Pancras at 6:18, and it's this one. And it arrives at Paris at 9:47 a.m. Now, how do we work out how many minutes it takes? Well, what you could do is simply say, well, okay, so 6:18, 9:47. These are not ratios, by the way, this is the time, so don't get confused. So we add 3 hours here. This is what you can do when this number is more than this number. So it takes 3 hours to get, so 3 hours and how many minutes? Well, 47 minus 18, simply 29. So it takes us 29 minutes to get from here to here. 3 hours here to here. The answer is 3 hours and 29 minutes. Question B. What's the difference in minutes between the time it takes for the 5:40 train and the 6:18 train from London St Pancras to reach Paris? Now, you don't need to redo the question. We already know how long it takes the 6:18 train to get from London St Pancras to Paris. The answer is simply 3 hours and 29 minutes. But how long does it take for the 5:40 train to reach Paris from London St Pancras? Well, we first locate the 5:40 train, and then we do the same thing. But this time, unfortunately, this number is bigger than this one. 40 is bigger than 17. What I like to do is similar to what I did before. First, I find out how many minutes it takes to get to 6 a.m., which is, of course, 20 minutes. And then, okay, so imagine this becomes 6 a.m. to 9:17 is 3 hours and 17 minutes. So making life easy a little bit for yourself, which is equal to 3 hours and 37 minutes. Now we find the bigger number between this one and this one. So in this case, it's clearly this one. And we subtract the small number from the bigger number. So 3 hours and 37 minutes, as a reminder, that's how long it takes from this train here, the 5:40 one, to get to Paris. And 3 hours 29 minutes is how long it takes the train from London St Pancras at 6:18 to get to Paris at 9:47. So it takes longer for the 5:40 one to arrive than the St Pancras, than the 6:18 one. So we find the difference. 337 minus 3, well, this simply cancels out. And then 37 minus 29 is 28. It takes twice, so 8-minute difference. And last question. Georgia lives in Ashford. She has to get to meeting in Paris for 10:30. Aha. What is the time of the latest train she can get from Ashford? Well, first, we need to find out what is the latest train that she can get that arrives in Paris. Is it 9:17? Well, first, we look at the next one, 9:47. Okay, she can get the later. So it's not the 5:40 one. And repeat. 10:17 is later than 9:47 and is before 10:30. She can take the 0701. However, she cannot take the 7:55 one because then she would arrive at 11:17, which is of course later than 10:30. So the latest train she can take is the 7:01. However, there is no train that leaves from Ashford at 7:01. So the train does not stop at Ashford, so she can't take this one. But the previous one, even though it's not the latest train that goes from London to Paris, it actually is the only one, it's the latest one that actually stops at Ashford, which is where she needs to get on. So now, of course, we've located it and we found the answer. It's simply 6:55 a.m. As always, please feel free to let me know in the comments how you found this video, whether it helped you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to message or contact me personally on my email. So have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.